Thank you. You too.
And now the candidate whose message of sound money, free markets, personal freedom, and a non-interventionist foreign policy has inspired a generation of rabble-rousing libertarians, of which your host is one, to rage against the machine. He's the only man in the race who Sarah Palin and Rush Limbaugh both have admitted will actually cut the budget and spend less than the government takes in. He's the godfather of the Tea Party movement and a champion of the Constitution. Congressman Paul joins us now. Always a pleasure. I don't know if you heard what Governor Palin just had to say. She welcomes your ideas. She loves what you believe in. She agrees with you on almost all the issues. But she thinks that Newt Gingrich might be a stronger candidate against Barack Obama than you. What do you say about that, Congressman Paul?
Well, you know, I guess everybody has the right to their own opinion, but, you know, if they do some polling nationally with my name up against Obama, I do just about as well as any of them, and I don't think Newt does any better than I do. But the point is are his views really different? I did hear what Governor Palin said, but I don't think he's anti-establishment. I was there when he was in the Congress, and he was as much as part of the problem. I mean, you know, I met him in the 70s, and he was rather bold in saying, I'm a Rockefeller Republican.
Right.
So sometimes sometimes I think that for him to be Tea Party anti-establishment, that is a stretch.
How can you present yourself as the only anti-establishment candidate? I could even say anti-Romney. It's clearly the establishment wants Mitt Romney. The establishment always wants the candidate who will rock the boat the least. How can you present yourself as the candidate who will rock the boat the most, who will present the starkest contrast to Barack Obama, and has a clear message of bringing the government back within the confines of the Constitution?
Well, I think anybody that knows me or knows anything about what I've been saying for 30 years, or anybody looking at the platform, they know that is the case. The problem that we have as strict constitutionalists, we don't get the same coverage. And sometimes when we do get the coverage, they mock it or laugh at it and say, oh, this is too extreme. Of course, we've come to the conclusion that the extremists have been in charge. You know, none of the other candidates want to cut anything. And the leadership of the Republican and Democratic Party have never proposed any cuts. They're only proposing token cuts on proposed increases. So it's the way it's presented, and the people have bought into this and say, oh, it's extreme to cut anything. It's extreme to question the Federal Reserve. It's extreme to not be the policeman of the world. And it goes on and on. So the job of a campaign is to get that message out. And when we do it on one-on-one, see, we were able to get a pretty good message out in Iowa and New Hampshire. And in the last couple of days when we were up in Maine, believe me, there's a lot of enthusiasm.
Right.
But at a national level, it's a real challenge. We don't get quite the same coverage as the others do because they all represent the status quo.
There once, I think, were about 9 or 10 of you. I remember Tim Pawlenty and of course, Michelle Bachmann and Rick Perry. And John Huntsman. It's now down to 4 of you. Would it be better if you sort of did better than Rick Santorum and sort of knocked him out of the race, so it's just you as the only conservative and the only small government person taking on the establishment and taking on Newt Gingrich at the same time?
Well, I feel like I'm the only one now, but you're right. The votes might pick up. You know, when Rick Perry, who was supposed to be a good conservative Texan, when he dropped out, we picked up votes. Actually, percentages went up when Kane dropped out, too, because he had a little bit more legitimacy about being a Tea Party because he had not been in government. And, you know, his arguments were a little bit more credible. So our percentages, that's when they took a nice little jump. You know, it went from the single digits up to the high double digits after he dropped out. So that would be the case. But I've been, even when there were 8 other candidates, I always said they all represented the status quo because they're not talking anything about what I'm talking about, you know, with a strict interpretation of the Constitution. That's what they don't want to live up to and the reason they don't want to talk about it because it's a little bit embarrassing to them. You know, they take the oath, but then they say, oh, you mean you're not supposed to go to war without a declaration? I didn't know about it. You mean it's still in the Constitution that you're supposed to have gold backing to the currency?
Yes.
You know, this kind of thing. They don't want to have the embarrassment of that, but that's well entrenched in Washington, so that's why you don't hear our views expressed on national TV as often.
Congressman Paul, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Judge.
You just heard